Hello there and welcome to Black Jackal Gaming. Today we're going to look at Games Workshop pricing and specifically are characters, are they too expensive? So GW made a switch in the past with the pricing, which made the character models and the models they considered to be better on the tabletop just to become more expensive based on that. The newer characters tend to be more expensive than the previous ones as well. You don't really get too much model for your money for the character models as well, they're quite small for what you pay. And for this edition that's all about characters leading units, are they pricing people out of the game by making them so unaffordable? So the prices of some of the basic characters are far too high. The likes of the Primaris Lieutenant are quite high for what you actually get. So the Primaris Lieutenant currently comes in at £22.50. So when you consider you can get 10 Assault Intercessors for £37.50, and within this box, you get the bits to essentially make the Lieutenant because you get the likes of the Plasma Pistols, Power Swords, and your Power Fist. So you can make 3 Lieutenants and have a 5-man Assault Intercessor squad for £37.50 rather than spending £22.50 just for one. Now, this is the same across all the factions as well. When you look at the Reaver and Phobos Lieutenants, they're in the same boat as well. You can just pick up Reavers or your Phobos, such as your Incursors, your Infiltrators, and make the Lieutenants from them. They're quite monopose, the Lieutenants that you make, so you can actually kitbash them a little bit better at times from the box set. The only issue you've got is that some of the bases are slightly bigger, so you do sometimes have to pick up some of the bases, but you can pick these up relatively cheap from the likes of eBay, and you can even then use them to kitbash the likes of Captain from the kit, because apart from the Iron Halo and maybe the odd cape here and there, which you can actually pick up relatively cheap, there's not much difference to the models. When you look at some of the older models, the price point they actually charge you for some of them are okay. They're in the teens, which is quite acceptable for most people. A current Pain Boy sets you back £19, which is on the upper end of the old model character units. But when you compare this to the new Beast Stagger version, which is the Pain Boss, this comes in at £25, which is a £6 increase for a model that essentially does the same. The only difference is that this guy then comes with a grot as well, whilst the Pain Boy comes with the grot on the model himself. So you got another example for Salamanders, which is quite a good one. They've got a firstborn captain called Hestan, Vulcan Hestan, and he's £18 for the model. Now you can get a different captain, which is a Primaris one called Adrax Agathon for £27.50. Now these models are identical in size, apart from one being Primaris scale, so slightly bigger. So why the dramatic increase in the cost between the two? When you're looking at such a substantial increase being 53% between the two of them, there's not actually much more manufacturing included in the cost. Why is there essentially a £9 increase for models that are pretty much the same size and the same rank on the battlefield? When you look at the likes of a Ghazghkull Thraka, he comes in at £45 and he's on an 80mm base, but he's quite a small model. When you have him in hand, you actually realise how small he is. He's more the size of the old Dreadnought, maybe slightly smaller. And whilst he is on a big base, he doesn't actually come across that imposing on the battlefield. And for £45, you don't get much for your money. His base is a bit smaller than the Redemptor, so you'd consider him maybe he's of a similar profile, but he's actually around half the size of Redemptor. He's on the small side. That's including the fact that he is on tactical rocks as well to boost him up a little bit higher. The price means you're not really getting much for your model for the same price. Being £45, you actually get quite a lot with the Redemptor. You get a lot of plastic for your money, so it's a little bit more bearable than what you do with the likes of Gaz. Some characters like the Space Marine Terminators, they only come on one small sprue and it's in a small box, and most of the characters, they just come on this individual sprue with not many options. So when you're looking at £26 for one model, when you can get 10 Primaris Space Marines for £37, there's such a big difference in the amount of plastic you're getting for your money, for not that much difference in the detail and quality of the model. So Game Workshop, it operates at a high profit level and has a massive markup on all of its products. Now it is a company, so it does have to make a profit, but they are currently operating with zero debt. And what this essentially means is that they're not as easily influenced by external influences such as economic influences, anything to do with prices going up, the likes of energy prices going up, just your raw materials, they're not as easily influenced by increased interest rates because they're not servicing any debt. So they should be able to cope with external factors quite easily. They can afford to lower the price of the products, and what this was actually to lead to would be an increase in the amount of sales that they're having. It would decrease in the proxies and third-party models that other companies will be selling because the price point will be near theirs, and it's for a similar quality as well. It'll also decrease in the IP theft via 3D printing. If the price point was lower, the inconvenience of 3D printing or buying proxies, you wouldn't purchase as much, and as well as that, they wouldn't have to spend the money actually fighting the IP theft because it wouldn't be as profitable for people. And more importantly, it would increase the amount of people in the hobby because the entry level for a 2,000 point army is really high in money value. So if you lowered that, you'd get more people in the hobby, and more people in the hobby means more models purchased, and you're more likely to pick up the additional unit here and there just to paint for fun if it's not that expensive. So we all get that they are a company and they have to make a profit, because at the end of the day, all companies that have shareholders, they have to show growth. Otherwise the shareholders get nervous and the stock value decreases in price, which is an issue for some companies, especially when the management is actually paid via stock. So they want the assets to be as high as possible. But there's ways to grow outside of just increasing prices. Just because you're looking at the bottom line, you don't always have to just increase your prices to keep that growth going. They've been so focused on how they get gamers to experience FOMO to push all the new ranges by getting them to pre-order ahead of time in small windows where they sell out stock really high. So you cannot really get your hands on this, which leads to a lot of scalpers on the likes of eBay making further profit off of gamers. And what this actually also has an effect, because they're pushing FOMO and new models so much, they don't actually have the capacity to keep the range in stock. So when you go on the website, a lot of the models are actually out of stock at the moment because they're trying to push the biggest next big thing every time and selling out. There's other practices they can use to encourage people to part with their cash as well. It doesn't always have to be FOMO. It can just be the sheer enjoyment of the game, getting people to engage in meaningful ways with the different factions by pushing them, marketing them, and bringing out good stories with the lore, new models, and campaigns that are really engaging with gamers. They currently also bin a lot of stock to make space rather than putting them on sale, as there's no sales ever with Gamesworkshop. It'd be really well received if they did have a sale, but if you listen to a lot of the inside stories, they end up binning the stock to make space rather than selling it. Which again, this harms the bottom line, but they want to keep the value of the product as high as possible. So in conclusion, some of the models are dramatically overpriced. You are going to be paying a lot for little plastic. But you can kit bash a lot of these models to save yourself a boatload of cash. And this is hard-earned cash that you've got to work for. And when you part with your money, you want it to be value for money rather than just having that disappointment that sometimes you open up the box that you purchased and there's not a lot of plastic in there for what you've just paid. You do want to not get drawn in by the FOMO. When the products are coming out, if you don't need them, they just look cool, just take time to actually consider whether you want it or not. It will be back in stock at some point, and do you need it right away? And when it does come back in stock, you'll find most of the time actually you don't want that model or that army anymore, and you've moved on to other things. You can also use your local gaming store or some online websites where you always get discounts. You'd be saving yourself 10 to 20%. So you shouldn't really order directly from Games Workshop unless you don't have any local schools that do give you these discounts. And more importantly, if you have one or you know someone with one, 3D printers do go brrr. They do save you a lot of money, and there's a lot of cool proxies out there. Just make sure that when you are getting them, you're getting legitimate ones. You are avoiding ones that are going through a bit of IP theft. A lot of the models within the GW range, they're not really copyrightable because they are quite generic looking. So as long as you're purchasing and printing models that aren't going down the copyright route and they are just cool models that you can proxy and they look similar, go right ahead. You'll have loads of fun, they're cool to paint, and you'll save yourself a bunch of money. If you liked the video, hit the like and subscribe button. Consider taking a membership to support the channel, or pop across to Patreon where I do some blogging and put some memes up there. There's also some STLs available for the likes of some light terrain and a fair few different objective markers. Check out these other videos, take it easy, I'll see you next time.